Have you ever noticed how a single comment can change your entire day? Not because it was true, but because something inside you opened the door and let it enter. Have you ever promised yourself you would stop giving people that kind of power, only to find your mood collapsing again the next time someone ignored you, doubted you, criticized you, or simply looked at you the wrong way? If you've been feeling emotionally exposed, spiritually drained, or stuck in this strange cycle of trying to stay positive, while your body still carries tension, fear, and disappointment, then this video is not here to entertain you. It is here to guide you back to a deeper authority, the authority of your own consciousness. Because elevated consciousness is not a concept you repeat in your mind like a slogan. It is not something you claim. It is something you practice, moment by moment, especially in the moments where life tries to pull you into old reactions, old beliefs, and old emotional scripts. And the truth is, most people don't suffer because they lack spirituality. They suffer because they are unconsciously living as prisoners of the external world, reacting to noise, chasing validation, absorbing negativity, interpreting setbacks as signs of failure, and waiting for the universe to change before they allow themselves to breathe again. In this journey together, you're going to learn how to become unshakable without becoming cold, how to recognize synchronicities without falling into obsession or fantasy, and how to co-create with the universe not from desperation, but from real confidence. Confidence built through emotional regulation, inner alignment, spiritual maturity, and practical daily rituals. And if you stay until the end, you won't just understand these ideas intellectually. You will feel a shift happening inside you, because your mind will finally be hearing a message it has been waiting for. You are not here to be controlled by life. You are here to co-create it. Before we begin, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment telling me, what is the biggest emotional trigger that still steals your peace today? Unshakable. Without becoming cold, there is a quiet kind of exhaustion that comes from living as if your peace is always negotiable, not negotiable in grand, dramatic moments, but in the small ones that seem harmless at first. A message that arrives with a strange tone, a co-worker's indifference, a loved one's delay, a look that feels like judgment, an unexpected bill, a sudden memory, and before you realize what happened, your inner world is no longer yours. Your breathing changes. Your stomach tightens. Your thoughts begin to spiral, creating stories that feel real simply because they feel intense. This is not weakness. This is conditioning. It is what happens when a person has lived too long with the belief that safety is outside of them, and peace depends on circumstances cooperating. What most people call being affected is not truly about sensitivity. Sensitivity, when mature, becomes wisdom. What you are dealing with is emotional invasion, the sense that external life can enter you without permission and rearrange your entire inner state. And the tragedy is that over time, the mind begins to accept this as normal. It starts to believe that calm is only possible when everything is resolved, when everyone approves, when nothing unexpected happens. But life does not work like that. Life is movement. Life is contrast. Life is uncertainty mixed with beauty. So if your inner stability is built on outer perfection, you will never be stable, because you are building your foundation on something that cannot be controlled. This is where elevated consciousness becomes practical, not poetic, not abstract, practical. Because the first sign of true spiritual growth is not how inspired you feel when everything is going well. The first sign is how quickly you return to yourself when something tries to pull you out of alignment. That is what it means to become unshakable. Not to become emotionless, not to become numb, not to pretend you are above human experience, but to become so rooted inside your own awareness that emotion can move through you without owning you. That is an important distinction, because many people try to become strong by shutting down. They call it maturity, but it is actually self-protection disguised as wisdom. They become colder, not stronger. They become distant, not free. Being unshakable is the opposite of hardness. Hardness breaks. Presence bends without breaking. Presence remains open without being vulnerable to every storm. And if you have been hurt before, if you have been disappointed before, if you have been betrayed or abandoned in some way, your nervous system may have learned a painful lesson. Stay alert, stay guarded, anticipate pain. That survival strategy may have protected you for years, but it also keeps you reactive. And reactivity is spiritual poverty. It drains energy, it reduces creativity, and it makes manifestation nearly impossible because you are constantly broadcasting the frequency of defense instead of the frequency of trust. If you want to understand why this matters for manifestation, prosperity, and synchronicities, you have to understand one deep truth. The universe does not respond to what you say you want. It responds to who you are being consistently. It responds to what your energy rehearses every day. And energy is shaped by attention, by emotion, by meaning. When your attention keeps returning to the same fears, the same stories, the same need for validation, you are reinforcing those inner circuits. You are training your body to live as if the past is still happening. And if the body believes the past is still happening, it will not allow the future to arrive. It will keep pulling you back into the same emotional identity. That is why the real work begins in moments that seem ordinary. A moment where someone speaks with an edge, a moment where plans change, a moment where you feel unseen. These are the moments that shape your destiny because they reveal your default self, and the default self is not who you truly are. It is who you became under pressure. Elevated consciousness is the choice to stop living as the product of pressure and start living as the creator of presence. One of the most powerful shifts you can make is learning to separate events from meaning. Events happen. A person acts a certain way. A door closes. A message is not returned. Money fluctuates. But meaning is the invisible story you attach to the event, and that meaning decides your emotional state. For example, someone's silence can be interpreted as rejection, or as distraction, or as emotional limitation on their side. The fact remains the same, but the inner experience changes completely. Most suffering is not caused by events. It is caused by unconscious meaning. And once you see that, you begin to reclaim the power you thought you lost. This is why becoming unshakable requires something deeper than motivation. It requires emotional regulation. It requires an ability to return to coherence, to bring the body out of stress and back into safety. Because when the body is in stress, the mind becomes dramatic. It exaggerates, it predicts, it catastrophizes. It becomes desperate to find certainty. And certainty is the drug of the anxious mind. The anxious mind would rather believe something negative than remain in the unknown. That is why people sabotage miracles. They prefer familiar pain over unfamiliar peace. Familiar pain feels controllable. Unfamiliar peace feels unsafe. So the first step in becoming unshakable is not to fight the mind. It is to calm the body. When you feel triggered, do not rush to respond. Do not rush to defend yourself. Do not rush to explain. Pause long enough to feel what is happening inside your physiology. Notice how the trigger lives in your chest, your throat, your stomach. Notice how the body tries to prepare for emotional danger. And then breathe in a way that tells your nervous system, I am safe right now. I can stay present. I do not need to react to prove my worth. In that moment, you are not avoiding emotion. You are transforming it. You are becoming the one who holds emotion instead of the one who is held by it. And as this becomes a habit, something changes in your perception. People begin to lose their power over you, not because you stopped caring, but because you stopped abandoning yourself. You stop needing others to confirm your value. You stop expecting the world to be gentle in order for you to be at peace. You start carrying your own center. And the moment you carry your own center, you become magnetic, not because you are forcing manifestation, but because you are radiating stability. You are no longer leaking energy into reactions. You are no longer begging life to behave. You are becoming a calm command. There is a spiritual intelligence in that, because when you stop being emotionally hijacked, you finally create inner silence. And inner silence is not emptiness, it is clarity. It is the space where intuition becomes audible. It is the space where synchronicities can be recognized without obsession. It is the space where the universe can guide you, not through chaos, but through subtle alignment. That is why this chapter matters. Unshakable energy is not just a personal victory. It is the foundation that allows you to recognize divine patterns and co-create with confidence instead of fear. And the most beautiful part is this: the world does not need to change for you to become free. People do not need to become kinder for you to be stable. Circumstances do not need to become perfect for you to feel peace. Your freedom begins the moment you decide that your inner state is sacred territory, that it is not open to invasion, that your consciousness belongs to you. And once you begin living from that decision, you start realizing something that changes everything. You were never meant to be controlled by life. You were meant to meet life from the inside out. Synchronicities and the quiet language of the universe. There is a moment that happens to almost everyone on this path, and when it happens, it feels both ordinary and sacred at the same time. You think about someone you haven't spoken to in years, not as a forced memory, but as a soft presence that drifts through your mind. And then hours later, their name appears in a conversation, or they reach out unexpectedly, or you see something that points directly to them. You may dismiss it at first as coincidence, yet something in your chest tightens with a different kind of attention, like life is leaning toward you and whispering, "Pay attention, you are not alone in this." This is the doorway into synchronicity, and for many people it becomes one of the most comforting and confusing spiritual experiences they will ever have. Because synchronicity is not just about the event, it is about the meaning you feel moving beneath the surface of the event. It is the sense that life has layers, and that not everything is random. Yet this is also where many people lose their grounding. When the inner world is unstable, synchronicity becomes dangerous, not because synchronicity itself is harmful, but because an anxious mind will turn it into a desperate form of guidance. And desperation is never a good interpreter of spiritual signs. Desperation does not listen. It clings, it pulls, it demands. It tries to force certainty out of the invisible, and in doing so it misses the quiet intelligence that synchronicity actually carries. For a person who has been disappointed enough times, the heart begins to bargain with reality. It starts to say, "If I see a sign, then I will finally believe again." And that is understandable because the pain of losing faith is real. When you have tried to manifest and nothing changes, when you have prayed and silence is all you hear, when you have done the inner work and still feel stuck, the soul begins to feel abandoned. Many people don't say this out loud, but they feel it, a sense of spiritual loneliness, as if the universe has gone quiet. And in that emotional climate, synchronicities can become a substitute for trust. You search for them like someone searching for oxygen. You begin to rely on them to calm your fear, to justify your decisions, to keep you from feeling lost. But the deeper truth is this: synchronicities are not meant to replace your inner authority. They are meant to refine it. This is where the teachings of Carl Jung become so relevant, because Jung never treated synchronicity as superstition. He treated it as a meaningful convergence between the psyche and the external world, a symbolic bridge where inner transformation and outer events seem to echo each other. Synchronicity is not fortune-telling. It is not a guarantee. It is not a command. It is a resonance. It is the universe reflecting your state of consciousness through patterns that appear outside you. But this reflection is subtle, and subtlety requires stillness. If the mind is noisy, it cannot hear the whisper. If the heart is desperate, it will confuse whispers with screams. And that is how people begin to turn spirituality into obsession. There is also a psychological layer that needs to be honored here with honesty. The human brain is a pattern recognition machine. It is designed to connect dots. When you intensely desire something, your attention starts to filter reality differently, and you begin seeing references everywhere. This can happen even without spiritual meaning. A person thinking about a new car suddenly sees that car everywhere. A person thinking about a breakup suddenly sees couples everywhere. This is not the universe punishing or rewarding you. This is attention-shaping perception. And that is why elevated consciousness demands discernment. It respects mystery, but it does not abandon intelligence. The most mature way to relate to synchronicity is to see it as a mirror, not a map. It mirrors your alignment, your readiness, your inner questions. It mirrors what you are becoming. When you are coherent inside, when your nervous system is calmer, when your emotions are less reactive, when your attention is not scattered, synchronicities begin to feel different. They don't create panic. They don't create mania. They create a quiet recognition, like something clicking into place. It's not dramatic. It's deeply personal. It feels like the universe is speaking a language that only the centered part of you can translate. And this is the key difference between true synchronicity and emotional projection. Emotional projection is urgent. It demands meaning immediately. It tries to turn every event into a prophecy. True synchronicity is calm. It invites reflection. It leaves space for your wisdom to breathe. It does not rush you. It does not push you into impulsive decisions. In fact, when synchronicity is real, it often feels like the opposite of pressure. It feels like reassurance without attachment, like confirmation without obsession, like a subtle nod from the universe that says, keep walking. Your inner work is not invisible. There is an invisible danger, however, in becoming addicted to signs. When a person keeps asking the universe to prove itself, what they are truly saying is, I do not trust myself, and the universe does not build your life for you. It co-creates with you. If you constantly outsource your direction, you weaken the very muscle that manifestation requires, personal sovereignty. You begin to hesitate, you second-guess, you delay, you look for permission everywhere, and permission is the opposite of power. The universe is not asking you to become passive, it is asking you to become present. Present enough to notice, present enough to respond, present enough to act in alignment instead of acting out of fear. A powerful image to hold here is the surface of a lake. When a lake is still, it reflects the sky perfectly. But when the water is disturbed, the reflection becomes distorted. Most people do not realize this, but their emotional turbulence distorts the way they interpret reality. Their fear bends every sign into threat. Their longing bends every coincidence into promise. Their pain bends every delay into rejection. And then they call that distortion spiritual intuition. But intuition does not shout. It does not demand. It does not punish. Intuition is quiet and precise. It speaks with the tone of clarity, not chaos. This is why the ability to be unshakable, which you explored in the previous chapter, is what makes synchronicities truly useful. Because when you become emotionally steady, you stop forcing meaning. You stop needing the universe to soothe your anxiety. And in that steadier space, the patterns you notice become cleaner, more relevant, more aligned with your growth. Synchronicity begins to guide you not into fantasy, but into refinement. It points to what is ready to be healed. It points to what is ready to be created. It points to the direction your soul is already leaning toward, even if your fear tries to resist it. And the most beautiful part of all is that synchronicity does not require you to become perfect. It simply requires you to become honest. Honest enough to admit when you are searching for signs because you feel lost. Honest enough to admit when you are interpreting life through anxiety. Honest enough to slow down and listen with your whole being, not just your thoughts. Because the universe does speak. Not always with words, not always with miracles, but often with subtle alignments that feel like threads, pulling you gently toward your next becoming. And once you learn to recognize that language with discernment, your life starts to feel less like a struggle and more like a conversation, co-creation with confidence, not desperation. There is a moment in every spiritual journey when the soul gets tired of begging, not necessarily begging people, but begging life itself, begging circumstances to become easier, begging the universe for a sign strong enough to silence doubt, begging for something to finally work, to finally move, to finally open. And if you've lived through long seasons where nothing seems to change no matter how much you try, you know this feeling intimately. You wake up carrying hope, but it's a fragile hope, the kind that cracks easily when the day brings another delay, another disappointment, another reminder that the world doesn't always respond when you want it to. This is where many people confuse manifestation with emotional survival, and that confusion becomes the invisible reason why they cannot create consistently. Because true co-creation is not built on urgency. It is not built on fear. It is not built on the idea that if you do not receive the outcome soon, your life will collapse. That is not co-creation. That is dependency. That is an anxious relationship with the future. And the universe does not move through anxious pressure. It moves through alignment, through coherence, through the quiet authority of someone who has stopped negotiating their worth with outcomes. When you co-create from desperation, you are not really creating, you are trying to escape. And escape always carries the energy of lack, even when the intention sounds positive. This is why elevated consciousness must include something that many people avoid, an honest relationship with time. The mind wants instant proof. The heart wants reassurance. The body wants safety now. But co-creation unfolds like nature, not like a machine. A seed does not become a tree because it was commanded. It becomes a tree because it was placed in the right conditions and nurtured consistently, even when nothing visible is happening on the surface. And this is where spiritual maturity is revealed, because the ego hates the unseen phase. The ego believes that if it cannot see results, nothing is happening. Yet the universe often builds silently. It rearranges timing, relationships, inner readiness, and subtle opportunities in ways you cannot track with logic alone. This is not meant to frustrate you. It is meant to deepen you. Co-creating with confidence begins when you realize that the universe responds less to what you desire and more to what you are rehearsing emotionally. People often say they want prosperity, love, peace, freedom, but they rehearse insecurity daily. They rehearse self-doubt. They rehearse the expectation of being disappointed, and the body becomes the altar where those rehearsals turn into identity. This is why the work is not simply asking for what you want. It is becoming someone who can hold what you want without collapsing. Because every blessing carries weight. Every opportunity carries responsibility. Every new level of abundance carries the need for a stronger nervous system, a clearer mind, a calmer relationship with uncertainty. This is where the teachings of transformation become grounded. When Joe Dispenza speaks about changing your state of being, he is pointing toward a universal principle. Your inner state becomes your signature. Your signature becomes the frequency you live in, and your frequency shapes what you notice, what you accept, what you reject, what you tolerate, and what you repeatedly create. In other words, the universe does not just deliver things to you like a package. It mirrors you back to yourself until you finally become coherent enough to receive what you've been asking for without sabotaging it through fear. Confidence in this context is not loud. It is not arrogance. It is a deep internal agreement with life. It is when you stop needing to fight the current and start learning how to move with it while still honoring your intention. And that is the balance most people struggle with. They either become passive, believing the universe will do everything for them, or they become controlling, believing they must force everything to happen. Co-creation lives between these extremes. It is a partnership. It is intention without attachment, action without panic, discipline without self-punishment. This partnership begins with clarity, not the kind of clarity that demands a perfect plan, but the clarity that comes from knowing what you are truly seeking beneath the desire. Many people want money, but what they actually want is relief. They want to stop feeling pressured. They want to stop feeling small. They want to breathe without fear. Many people want love, but what they actually want is safety. They want to feel seen. They want to feel chosen. They want to feel like they belong. When you understand what you're truly seeking, you stop chasing outcomes like trophies and start building an inner foundation that matches the life you want to live. From that foundation, co-creation becomes practical. It becomes something you can feel in your daily choices. If you claim you want abundance, but every day you act like you expect loss, your actions are carrying a different message than your words. If you claim you want peace, but you keep feeding your nervous system with chaos, conflict, and emotional noise, you are creating contradiction, and contradiction confuses the process. The universe does not punish contradiction, but it responds more slowly to it, because you are not stable in one direction. Your energy is pulling forward and backward at the same time. That tension is felt as stagnation, and this is the part that can feel uncomfortable, because co-creation asks you to stop seeing yourself as a victim of timing. It asks you to become responsible for your coherence. It asks you to build the kind of inner consistency that no longer depends on external confirmation. That is why the earlier chapters mattered. When you become unshakable, you stop leaking energy into reactivity. When you understand synchronicities with discernment, you stop outsourcing your direction. And now in this chapter, you bring it all together. You become someone who holds their intentions steadily while still living fully in the present. This steadiness changes everything. It changes how you speak. It changes how you walk into rooms. It changes how you respond to rejection. It changes how you handle delay. Because delay no longer means denial. Delay becomes a space where you refine yourself. Rejection no longer becomes humiliation. Rejection becomes redirection. Uncertainty no longer becomes panic. Uncertainty becomes possibility. This is what it means to co-create with confidence. You do not collapse when the universe asks you to wait. You do not take silence as abandonment. You do not interpret every pause as failure. Instead, you remain in relationship with your own vision. your own values, your own energy, even when the world is not giving immediate feedback. And this is where prosperity becomes spiritual. Not because money is sacred, but because the consciousness behind money is sacred. Prosperity is not only wealth, prosperity is flow, prosperity is expansion. Prosperity is the feeling that life can support you because you have stopped fighting it internally. When you stop fighting internally, the universe stops needing to mirror that fight. Life begins to reflect a softer reality, not because it suddenly becomes perfect, but because you are no longer creating resistance at every step. There is a quiet miracle that happens when you reach this stage. You begin to realize that co-creation is not you trying to control the universe. It is you becoming someone the universe can work with, someone who can stay open without being naive, someone who can stay committed without being obsessed, someone who can keep walking even without guarantees. That is confidence. That is elevated consciousness in motion. And once you embody that, you no longer manifest from fear. You manifest from agreement, from trust, from alignment. And that is when things begin to move, not by force, but by resonance. The daily ritual of elevated consciousness. There is a part of spiritual growth that no one talks about in a dramatic way, because it does not feel like lightning. It feels like consistency. It feels like choosing yourself on days when nothing is celebrating you, when no sign appears in the sky, when your life still looks the same on the outside, and yet something inside you quietly refuses to return to the old way of being. This is the hidden place where real transformation lives. Not in the rare moments of inspiration, but in the ordinary hours where the soul either becomes disciplined in peace or becomes addicted to emotional turbulence. Elevated consciousness is not a mood you reach and then keep forever. It is a rhythm you return to, like a person returning to their own breath after being distracted by noise. Many people misunderstand spiritual alignment because they think it is supposed to feel high, constantly. They imagine an enlightened version of themselves that never gets triggered, never doubts, never feels pain, never gets tired. But the truth is more human, more compassionate, and far more powerful. Elevated consciousness is not the absence of negative emotion. It is the presence of inner authority even when emotion appears. It is the ability to meet loneliness without collapsing into stories of abandonment. It is the ability to meet fear without turning it into prophecy. It is the ability to meet frustration without turning it into self-hatred. And none of that happens by accident. It happens through a life that has been gently shaped by daily ritual, daily awareness, daily responsibility for the energy you carry. The modern world does not support your nervous system. It overstimulates it. Every scroll, every headline, every comparison, every sudden message trains the body to remain in subtle threat. Even when you are not in danger, your system stays slightly braced, slightly rushed, slightly tense, as if peace is always temporary. That is why so many people feel spiritually disconnected, not because the universe is silent, but because their inner world is too loud to hear. The mind becomes a crowded room, and intuition becomes a whisper that gets lost inside it. The body becomes exhausted, and the soul begins to feel like it is living in survival instead of living in meaning. This is where ritual becomes sacred, not because it is mystical, but because it is protective. Ritual is how you claim ownership of your inner state before the world tries to claim it for you. And the deeper truth is that the first moments of your day matter more than most people realize. The morning is not just the beginning of the schedule, it is the beginning of your frequency. It is the first moment your consciousness chooses an identity. If the first thing you do is enter the external world, you unconsciously declare that the external world is your master. You declare that the world's urgency is more important than your inner clarity. You declare that reaction is your default position. Over time, this creates a life that feels spiritually dry because you are constantly living from the outside inward. But when the morning begins from the inside outward, something different happens. Even if only for a few minutes, you meet yourself first. You feel your breath, you sense your chest. You become aware of what you are carrying, and in that awareness, you return to the most important spiritual truth. You are not your thoughts. You are not your fears. You are not the memory of what once happened. You are the consciousness that can witness all of it without being ruled by it. And once you remember that, the entire day becomes a practice of returning. Throughout the day, life will test your coherence. A conversation might awaken an old wound. A delay might activate impatience. A rejection might awaken a fear of not being enough. A family dynamic might trigger the identity you've carried since childhood. And if you are not grounded in practice, you will interpret these events as proof that nothing has changed. But that interpretation is another trap. Growth is not proven by never being triggered. Growth is proven by how quickly you come back. It is proven by how you respond instead of react. It is proven by whether you abandon yourself or remain present. This is why elevated consciousness is tied to emotional sovereignty. Sovereignty is not isolation. It is not pretending you do not care. Sovereignty is the ability to care without losing yourself. It is the ability to love without begging. It is the ability to be generous without sacrificing your boundaries. It is the ability to listen without absorbing. Many people think their empathy is their strength, but empathy without sovereignty becomes self-destruction. You begin to carry emotions that are not yours. You begin to inherit moods that do not belong to you. You begin to confuse compassion with self-erasure. And the universe cannot co-create through a person who has erased themselves, because co-creation requires presence, and presence requires a stable inner home. Then comes the evening, the quiet closing of the day, the moment most people rush past. But spiritually, night is not just rest. Night is integration. Night is the moment the mind organizes what the heart lived through. It is where emotional residue either becomes wisdom or becomes tension that carries into tomorrow. And that is why the most powerful spiritual life is not built through big dramatic breakthroughs alone. It is built through small moments of reflection, where you face yourself honestly without cruelty. You notice where you lost your center. You notice where you recovered it. You notice where you reacted from fear. You notice where you responded from consciousness. And that reflection becomes sacred because it turns your life into a teacher. It turns every day into a spiritual initiation, not by romanticizing pain, but by refusing to waste experience. Over time, this daily rhythm produces a quiet miracle. You begin to feel less emotionally disposable. You stop being pulled so easily. You stop being shaken by every shift in other people's moods, and something inside you becomes steady enough to carry abundance. Because abundance is not just money. Abundance is capacity. It is the capacity to hold joy without expecting punishment. It is the capacity to receive love without waiting for loss. It is the capacity to experience peace without feeling guilty. Many people struggle to manifest because they cannot hold what they ask for emotionally. They ask for expansion, but remain internally contracted. They ask for prosperity, but remain in survival. They ask for love, but remain in fear of abandonment. The daily ritual of elevated consciousness changes this, because it trains the body to live in safety again, and safety is the foundation of receiving. And slowly, almost without noticing, you begin to recognize that the universe has been responding all along, not always by giving you exactly what you imagined, but by giving you moments of alignment, moments of protection, moments of timing that saved you from what you did not see. Synchronicities become clearer, not because you are searching harder, but because you are calmer. Intuition becomes sharper, not because you are forcing it, but because you are quieter. Confidence becomes real, not because you have proof, but because you have a relationship with yourself that no longer depends on proof. This is the daily ritual of elevated consciousness. It is not a performance, it is a return. And the more you return, the more life begins to mirror your stability back to you, until stability becomes your new reality. What you've done here is more than listen to words. Something deeper has already started shifting inside you, because the truth is simple and demanding at the same time. Elevated consciousness is not a belief system, it is a way of living. It is the moment you stop handing your inner world over to people's moods, to sudden setbacks, to the noise of the internet, to the old reflex of fear. It is the moment you decide that your peace is not a fragile emotion that depends on perfect conditions, but a spiritual authority you return to again and again. Becoming unshakable is not about never feeling pain. It is about no longer building your identity around pain. It is the ability to stay open without becoming exposed, to stay kind without becoming weak, to feel deeply without drowning. And from that steadiness, synchronicities begin to appear in a new way. Not as magical guarantees, not as something to obsess over, but as quiet confirmations that your inner alignment is starting to match a greater order. Life becomes less like a random storm and more like a meaningful conversation, one symbol at a time. Then comes the most powerful stage of all, co-creation. Not the kind rooted in desperation, where you are trying to force reality to compensate for your wounds, but the kind rooted in confidence, where your intention becomes clear, your emotions become coherent, and your actions become aligned. In that space, manifestation stops being a struggle and becomes a natural consequence of who you are becoming. You don't chase the universe, you meet it. You don't beg for proof, you become proof. And finally, your daily ritual becomes the foundation that holds everything together. Not perfection, not constant highs, but a steady rhythm of returning to your breath, returning to your inner center, returning to a life lived from the inside out. Because the universe responds most clearly to the person who no longer abandons themselves. You are not here to survive your days. You are here to inhabit them with presence, to recognize the invisible guidance that was always there, and to create a life that reflects the truth of your soul. If this video touched something real in you, let me ask you one impactful question. What would your life look like if nothing and no one could steal your peace anymore, not even your own past? If you're ready to live with that level of inner power, make sure you subscribe to the channel right now, because the next videos will take you deeper into manifestation, prosperity, and spiritual alignment in a way that's practical and life-changing. And don't leave yet. Keep watching on the final screen, because the next video waiting for you is exactly what your consciousness needs to hear next.